We are live with Impact Money. Money in the morning.
Hello. Good morning, David. How are you?
Yes, doing well. Fantastic. It's bright and sunny over here, and we are getting this Monday morning rolling. How are you?
It's Monday morning. Welcome to everybody. We are live on Smart Money Culture TV in Texas and Louisiana, as well as streaming around the world on YouTube and LinkedIn, and of course, X, one of our favorite platforms. Pretty interesting weekend that we've had. Number one, we had our kickoff of Annie,
Oh,
which is
yes. Congratulations. How'd
yeah,
it go?
thanks, man. Oh, it was great. We had our first show. I had to switch browsers at the last minute in order to make this work. So I'll try to pull up some pictures here in a little bit. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and the girls loved it. Of course, my daughters absolutely had a great time. Um, and so that was really cool. So Kansas City wins the Super Bowl. So that's pretty cool. All right, did you guys
As
watch it over there?
predicted. As
As
predicted by
pre-
most people. It
yeah, I
wasn't
mean
a hard one to predict.
it couldn't have anything to do with that superstar of a. Actually, a lot of people were saying it was rigged.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm
Pretty
saying. He
funny.
said. Yeah. So, do they watch it over there in?
Some of the guys do definitely. Some of them do. Of course, it'll be a late night for us over here, but they do. But most people don't. You know.
Most people don't watch the Super Bowl. I don't blame them. I don't watch the Super
Who
Bowl
got
either.
who got the halftime show? Who did the halftime
Yeah,
show?
I didn't really watch, but
Okay.
I guess the rapper guy Usher or something. I saw him saying,
Oh wow.
I love Israel or something. I guess Israel was a huge sponsor of the deal as they were bombing Rafah. It's like it's also
Oh.
quintessential. I mean, I don't know. Am I the only one that just thinks it's so dark? Like, let's be the biggest sponsor of the bread and circus show, and oh yeah, by the way, let's go bomb a bunch of people.
Insane.
I know, whatever. So anyway, markets are sliding a bit. The Houthis bombed another U.S. ship, so that's never good. I
Yeah,
don't think
it's
people.
pretty brave move. I guess they're not scared of Biden.
Oh, I used to. Yeah, I don't think they really care too much about Biden or whatever. I don't think. I think that's when you're bombing the third world. I think it's kind of, it's. I don't think there's that many targets. Let me put it that way. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So like we're over there, we're bombing, but like, what are they bombing?
Yeah, some of that carpet bombing where you hit the rooftops and don't do much damage.
I mean, I'm sure it's the damage. I'm sure it's a lot of damage if you're one of the people getting bombed. But I mean, otherwise, yeah, agreed. Like it's kind of like, you know, yeah, that's my impression anyway. I mean, I don't know. I'm not that far up on it. Of course, the defense secretary is he's in the hospital. I guess he's got some kind of bladder cancer or something like that. I mean, poor guy. He's had some complications, so he's in there. So now we have the undersecretary of defense, I think, in charge, I guess, or whatever. A lot of stuff going on there too that they're talking about. So yeah, pretty. Yeah, there's a lot going on. I do think I never could get into the whole football thing. though. I will say that I do think it's like bread and circus. I definitely it just hits me as bread and circus. Where our elections are totally. We have the mail-in ballots and we have the magic voting machines, and nobody stopped either of those things. We're gonna vote in like I don't know how many months. 9 months or something
It
like
got
that.
much worse. it got much worse when they legalized some form of sports gambling, like out of Vegas and through a lot of the states.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess it's big business, right? The gambling, they do the sports betting. And I saw somebody put out a pretty funny post about that. You know, they said it was like, here's $100. And the guy says, well, what team do you want to put it on? He's like, no, you can just have it. Yeah, I want to bet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how my
Yeah.
betting go. I don't get into those betting because that's not my kind of luck.
Well,
if I have to hit the target or shoot a basketball hoop, I can switch those. But when it comes to randomized numbers or betting on something like that, I don't play.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I have to be honest about that. I don't really get into that type of stuff, for sure. So anyway, well, obviously as well, with crypto, we're kind of betting all the time anyway.
Well, that's a much more educated bet. You look at the sheet, at the white paper, you look at the business plan, and you can see who's operating and make a really good analysis. So it's betting, but it's not so much like
it's educated bet. It's educated bet.
And when you have a guy like Matt Dixon helping you out, you have much better odds.
When you have a guy like Matt Dixon helping out, that is great. I want to get, let me see here. So I have to now, I'm on a different browser. It didn't like me here. Let me just pull this up, futures. Here we go. All right, I'm going to share my tab here, talk a little bit about some of the stuff going on here.
Are you going to talk about Putin?
Well, we can. What do you want to talk about? Putin is so smart. He's so wonderful.
he really felt cool. He was kind of in his element. He was like, "Oh yes, let me tell the American."
He was really in his element. I agree. With his interview there with Tucker Carlson. Tucker has, since he left Fox, he's the biggest guy. He's the biggest guy in the news. Like, I never watched him when he was on Fox.
Well, you didn't watch Fox.
Right. But even if I did watch Fox, I didn't watch Tucker. Well, I didn't watch Fox. I guess it doesn't really count. But now he's big. He's big. And so, yeah, he got to do his interview, and he felt, well, he got to show everybody that, everybody, I mean, it's like Matt brought up, like, I mean, half of, the stuff they were telling us, I mean, the guy was like dying of cancer. He didn't have his full faculties. He was like, I mean, even I was like wondering, and there he is talking to us long, and you wanted to listen to him. Like, I mean, they've interviewed the other guy, and like, I don't know if I can't get over his transvestite type dancing or what, but like, it's a lot. It's hard for me to watch for a long time, but I was captivated with this interview. It was very smart. I felt like it was Trump. You know what I mean? Like, Trump's very smart. Watch Trump on an interview. The guy's smart, but anyway, No, I wasn't going to talk about that, but thanks for bringing it up. So gold, gold is down slightly. At about down $4 or so. Now it'll be interesting to see how this moves forward, because silver, I can show you here. Silver, actually, let's just do this. Silver is up almost 2%. So it's going to be interesting how that plays out. Now, if you look here under news, central banks buying gold. News. Central banks have been buying gold at record prices. Central bank gold buying in
Nice.
2023 topped 1,000 tons. Central bank summer of buying continues. That was December 2023. I don't know why I said summer. Gold demand hits. So anyway, I would tend to say that they are keeping the price down with paper. They're using the futures, which is how they control prices, especially in the commodities market, in the gold and silver markets. And so they're keeping that price down with paper. But it is interesting. Silver is having such a movement here. Silver is used a lot more than gold, obviously. Now, if you are looking at buying gold and silver, you should. We're not financial advisors and all that stuff, but they're inflating the heck out of your money. That bill passed the 98 billion or whatever it is, passed the Senate. So that means it's going now to the U.S. House, and Speaker Mike Johnson and the rest of these guys are going to be under a lot of pressure to pass it. And if it comes up for a vote, it might just pass anyway, because we have such slim majority, or the Republicans, I should say, have such slim majority in the House, and they got rid of the guy from New York. It's like they're all such crooks, but they got rid of the guy from New York because he was a crook. He was the wrong kind of crook. I don't know.
Yeah.
He was the wrong kind. I don't know. He tried to kiss everyone's butt too on the way out. He tried everything he possibly could, but he couldn't do it. We're going to commercials on Smart Money Culture TV in Texas and Louisiana. We will be on live with Mac Dixon when we return. Enjoy the commercials there with Fly Mackey. He's got a great set of commercials there. But yeah, so that's so that bill, I guess. Let me just Senate advances 95 billion. The Senate on Sunday pushed a 95 billion emergency aid for Ukraine and Israel with a bipartisan vote that kept it on track for passage within days. Guys, this is one of those moments when I wonder, no matter what you do, you can't stop it. Short of coming to Washington, D.C., which I know everybody's scared of. But if we came here like if we came here and showed up like the farmers, then it might work. But otherwise, there's so much money. When you have a bill with $95 billion, there's so much pork in that bill. There's so many kickbacks. There's so much money. Can you imagine? I mean, this is for normal Americans, not us here in Washington, D.C., because I'm here in the swamp, so I know what these payouts look like. But can you imagine what your referral commission is on a $500 million arms deal? I mean, think about that for a moment. All right, so you have $95 billion.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be some life-changing little piece of the pie there for you.
It's a life-changing piece of the pie. Yeah, I mean, you put that through, and you're really doing it. And we have let's see, God bless USA, amen. Joe Biden, number one, he says. So, that's a lot of money. And so I don't know, guys, if we have, I don't see that they're going to be able to stop it. It's too much money.
Well, it seems also like they just cut Texas out of it. Wasn't it supposed to be a three-way deal?
Oh, yeah, that was some 4G chess or something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, well, here's the thing about that whole bit. It was going to be horrible anyway. And what they did was they were giving Mayorkas, who is like I don't even know why, I guess he's been there. He's been corrupt for, I mean, it looks like anyway to me, corrupt for almost the whole time he's been there. And it gave him actually the ability to himself grant asylum. He could grant people asylum himself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the border bill was going to be ridiculous anyway. I mean, anything they sent, it was just going to be a big whatever. So, I mean, I hope that we're able to stop this bill. Israel doesn't need any money from us, guys. I don't understand why people, they're fine. Okay. And actually, just like the aid to Ukraine, if we stop the funding for these wars, guess what? The wars will stop. If we stop the funding, the wars will stop. But they're going to keep fighting each other until we stop funding them. And we're back over here on Smart Money Culture TV in Texas and Louisiana. We have Matt Dixon here, the great Sir Matt Dixon with his Market Watch. How are you, Matt? You must be on mute. There you go.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, Bruce, David.
Yes.
America, how are you all?
Doing great. You look like you got some tan over the weekend. Did you go out and play some golf?
I think I went out a bit on Saturday, but last night was one of the biggest rain days we've ever seen in Dubai. I'll show you a little picture in a moment.
Yeah.
And just show you what we had there's people in boats sailing down the street.
Well, it's funny because I have been there when it rained a lot before, probably not as much as it is now. And yeah, they don't have such, it's not like they have the whole rainwater setup, where it drains the rain so much because they don't need it. And so it floods for a very short amount of time.
I've just shared my screen, so I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
That was the cloudy Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
my gosh!
Swimming Dubai. So it was literally thunder and lightning and torrential rain the whole night long.
Wow.
That's really something else.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So what was
as you say, I've seen rain here before. You've been here when it's rained. I've been coming here for up to around 20 years, and I've seen these things in the past. We can't just say we don't know. I don't know about global warming, but I've seen this before. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. I don't either. I also know they do a lot of they see the clouds over there. I think not regularly, but it's not hidden. They use electricity in the clouds.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether this will be cloud seeding. I mean, whether they want this much rain, I don't know. It's brought the place to a halt temporarily. A lot of government workers.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
those poor people with those cars.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm at the dry end of town, fortunately, but even so, there's still a lot of rain here. But anyway, can you see my latest slide?
Lies, darned lies. We're not supposed to say anything like that on TV. And statistics.
Well, that's a direct quote from Mark Twain, isn't it? So lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Okay.
So it's quite interesting. This is looking, and what I'm really trying to say here is that we can use statistics to prove anything. You just put a chart up, and this looks really alarming. Buying power of a dollar over time, and you can see the buying power of our dollar or your dollar going down and down and down over time. Which is quite alarming. But people don't take into account that people's per capita income has gone up and up and up over time. And when you actually balance it out, you'll find that you're slightly better off, not much better off. I mean, this is looking from 60 years ago now, just about 60 years ago, from 1964. And this is looking at wages at the time, and $2.50 an hour for the average wage then, and $22 now. So the average wage has gone up by 10 times, but obviously we're not 10 times wealthier because the value of the dollar has gone down and down and down. So when you take into account the inflation, you're actually still better off, believe it or not. So when you adjust for inflation, the wage would have been $20, $27, now $22. So you're actually about 10% up in real terms. So your real wealth in real terms, buying power, in the last 80 years or so, is it 60 years or so, has gone up by 10%. So in other words, it's almost stagnant. There's not much change. You're a little bit wealthier than you used to be in general, in average, across the board. The only difference I would say is that maybe the wealth distribution is different. And I don't know whether that's in your favor or against, but obviously the disparity between rich and poor has changed. And that makes a big difference to the average person on the street. But overall, just the overall wealth, people are actually better off than they were. So despite all this dollar printing and massive debt and everything, you're actually a little bit better off than you were. Not a lot, but quite interesting to see.
That's interesting chart for sure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. But anyway, bringing it up to today's date, big news out tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow, the 13th. Is it the 12th today? So
today's the 12th, tomorrow's the 13th. So we get CPI tomorrow?
CPI tomorrow, yeah. So these are the forecasts. I mean, that's core above. Core excludes food and fuel, which I don't know quite why they do that, because that's, you know, some of our main expenditure is food and fuel. But anyway, that's expected to decline very slightly. And then the overall inflation, we're looking at a reasonable drop there in the overall inflation, which would bolster the Fed's decision. Well, would it? Maybe they should be lowering rates if inflation is dropping that fast. So let's see what happens tomorrow. Although, to be fair, it has been jumping around pretty stable since June of last year. So for the past 6-7 months, it's going to be of reported figures. Inflation has stayed pretty sticky. So maybe that's, you know, why, even though inflation is expected to drop a bit tomorrow, it's stayed pretty much the same for 6 months. So, you know, something's got to break at some point, but at the moment, inflation is still pretty sticky. So I do want to just jump onto today's charts as well, just to show you a couple of things from what's going on in the markets at the moment. So this, I'm going to jump around a few little charts, but this is the dollar index. Now, and again, this is all about perspective, and I just want to, again, show you about this darn lies and statistics, as you like to say. It just depends how you look at it. So this is one of the definitions of an uptrend, is basically higher highs. So you can see that high here, high high here, and a higher high here, and also higher lows. So basically, when you're getting higher highs and higher lows in a chart, it's telling you here of an uptrend. So clearly the dollar is uptrending. It has been uptrending since late last year until now. That's looking on the 4-hour chart, but it's all about perspective. So if we were to zoom out and look on the daily chart, for example, we can actually now see that in perspective a little bit more. That we've just looked at this bit here where the market's been rising, but if we took into account from here, we'd have probably a different picture. Basically, you know, a lower high here, a lower high, and, you know, effectively, you know, a completely different picture. So it all just depends how you look at these statistics. But that's why it's so important to look at the whole picture and see where we are from there. So this is the current picture of the S&P 500, which I think is very, very important. It's a really good proxy for the market. You know, where the S&P 500 goes is where risk assets tend to be going. So we can see here that we've, from the low back here, and again, it's all about perspective, but we have actually been in a long-term uptrend for the S&P 500. We may be nearing towards the end of that, and this 5-wave move might be signaling that, because impulsive moves are in 5 waves, and then you get at least a pullback in 3 waves. So we've got wave 1, wave 2, and we can measure that Fibonacci measurement. I'll just move this here. So you can see I've measured from 0 here, 100% is wave 1 here. And then we can just move that around to the start of wave 2. And that gave us the precise endpoint of wave 3, as we've said before, 1.618, the golden ratio. And then there's another thing we can do to try to calculate where wave 5 is likely to terminate. And one of the general rules is that if you measure from the beginning of the move down here to the end of wave 3, which is somewhere around here, and then transpose that to the bottom of the next wave, then normally wave 5 is not an exact science, but it normally approximates to 0.618 of that whole move. So 0.618 of that whole move tells us that potentially we do have just a little bit higher to go on the S&P before a real potential for turning around. And we can look at other indicators, like I'll just show you one other, for example here. We can look at something called divergence, and we draw a line, as Bruce knows all about this now, from the high on the RSI to the current price on RSI, and then we draw the corresponding line from the exact spot on S&P 500 to where we are today. So what we see there is rising price highs on the S&P 500, and volume or momentum is dropping off. And as we said before, that's telling you that quite likely the big players got out around this level here. When we got this sell-off here, that's probably a lot of the big players taking profit, and this is now retail players in the final 5-wave push to the upside. Because the big players, the whales and the big institutions, are not driving this market, that's why the volume and the momentum isn't really there. But the retailers are still thinking this is going up, and they're buying the market up in the final phase. But the big players, I'm saying, have already taken their profits. So that's another interesting signal that we're probably approaching a turning point, at least a short-term turning point in the market. Well, this is quite an interesting one. Let's go back to the 4-hour. Bitcoin, one of our favorites. We said, I said around 49,900, I think, and we may even achieve that or even go beyond it. But we got very close to it over the weekend. Got to just under 49,000, and we've got quite a bit of a turn down right now. And if I move on to the other Bitcoin chart, I've got it labeled better here. We can actually see this final move up, or the move down and move up. This was the ETF high that we had, and we had a bit of a sell-off following the ETF approval, and then we moved up. And it can be counted different ways, so I will not be dogmatic about this, but I am saying there's a warning sign potentially there that this move down was potentially an A wave. This move up is an ABC to take us for a B wave, and I'll actually show that here. Potential B wave, this large B here. And we may or may not have finished the final little 5th wave. It may have finished there. We may have a bit higher to go, but we've got an A, a B, and a C, and the C wave is made up of 5 waves itself, and we have within the C wave 1 in blue, 2 in blue, 3 in blue, and the wave 3 itself is made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in red, then a wave 4 in blue, and a wave 5 in blue, which may or may not be complete. If this count is correct, then we could have quite a little way to go down potentially for Bitcoin. And what I would say is, I'm not saying short the market, I'm just saying be aware of the risk here. And I was always saying that around the 50,000 mark, and you can never define too far in advance precisely what the level is, but from an Elliott wave perspective, there's potential around here for a top in the market. So this is what I call risk reward. The risk for me, well, you've got risk both ways. We can either break higher massively, or we can basically break down from here. But because it's a good risk reward boundary, you can potentially take long positions or short positions with stop losses very close in either direction. So it means your risk is small with potentially massive reward. If I'm wrong, the market could break massively higher. So you could have a long position with just above here with a stop loss just below. And if you're wrong, you'll get stopped out and make a little loss. But if you're right, you'll make a massive gain. You can also, at the same time, have a short position, basically sell just below with the stop loss just below, just above. And then if it goes wrong, you lose a little bit. If it goes right, you've got all of this gain from here down to below this A wave here. So tiny risk for massive reward. And that's the way professional traders like to trade. And we've seen a big move on Sol. And again, this is quite interesting. We saw potentially an ABC with the C wave being, there are different relationships. The C wave, most common relationship is 1-to-1. So the C wave normally equals 100% of wave 1. That's up here. But the next most common is probably about 0.618, and that's just about where Sol turned. And when you look at correlations across different assets, there was real potential. So I sold Sol. I've actually already closed it because it could just be an ABC down. So just again, you can use risk reward. 0.618 of that move there was a good potential point to sell. Could have been wrong, so you put your stop loss just above, but in fact it was right and it sold off. And as I say, I'm not greedy. I'm like Warren Buffett's idea of selling too early, always selling too early, basically, meaning you're taking profits and you're not risking the market. And the same sort of theme goes across most assets. We've seen certainly a local top in the market. I do believe that, with them being potentially, this being a potential wave 3 up here and a big ABC, it would tell me that this is just, even if I'm right and it moves down here, it's just a correction, an ABC correction. So then the next move would be to the upside to new highs above this wave 3. So I don't think that the market's finished on the upside as yet, but just short term, it's a real potential turning point. And we can see, looking across the board, obviously S&P isn't open yet, so we can ignore that one. DXY is dollar index, we can ignore that one. Most of the rest are very much in the red here. You can see the percentage losses in the red. So that's most of the market. Funnily enough, Link is one of the ones which is still, and I've been featuring Link quite a bit recently. You may remember I've mentioned it quite a few times. Yeah, and potentially that wave 5 was wrong there. I thought that might be a peak in the market. Potentially, now we may even have higher to go, who knows. But yeah, most likely actually we've got some kind of leading diagonal, wave 1 possibly, wave 2, wave 3, which is made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that would be a smaller wave 3, wave 4, and we're working on a final 5th wave to the upside quite possibly. So a little bit like the S&P, where potentially we're working on a final little bit of that 5th wave to the upside before we potentially get a pretty decent pullback. And that would align pretty much across most of the assets. So yeah, I think that's a reasonable summary of what I'm expecting in the week ahead. I do look at pound, as I say, that's had a bit of a pump recently, which is why risk assets pumped. We're pulling back a bit now. The pound, as I say, is amazingly, it's quite correlated with a lot of these risk assets. And so that's quite a good indication there of what's happening at the moment in the markets. So unless there's any particular ones you want me to focus on, that I know ICP is one of your favorites.
How's ICP looking?
Yeah, again, it looks as though potentially it's actually very similar, like Bitcoin. The high that we had was just below the previous high here. And so potentially this is an A, a B, and we're working on a C wave to the downside before potentially more upside. So it is looking as though we've seen a local top in the market and potentially going to see some downside there. There's no particular, there's actually very, very minor bearish divergence. If I was to draw it in, very minor bearish divergence, which means potentially the bias is slightly to the downside, but it's very minor. So we can see a slight uptrend in the price peaks. And as I say, we have to draw from the solid body of the candle here. So a slight uptrend there. And we can see on the RSI below, a slight downtrend on the corresponding RSI. So that basically tells you that's called this is called regular bearish divergence, which tells you that at this point here was a potentially really good point to sell. And you would look at other indicators. So we got potentially a big bearish engulfing candlestick here, which was again a sign that this was the local top in the market. So this is what's so good about trading. You don't take one indicator like this indicator here, the bearish divergence is a great indicator, but never take one indicator in isolation. You would at least look for a candlestick confirmation. That's what we got here with a bearish engulfing candlestick. telling you that we're potentially turning here. So you wouldn't have entered right at the top. You might have waited for the end of this red candlestick here. You'd have entered short here, and potentially, you can now protect it. Even if it's $1 protected profit, no matter what happens then, you've got $1 in your pocket. But if it continues down, you can actually make a really big profit. And that's one of the secrets to trading, as far as I'm concerned anyway, is use multiple indicators, protect your profits, and then you can let it run potentially for a big profit, or at worst, you get stopped out for $1. And then you get yourself a great trade record over time.
Good stuff.
Yes, protect your profits.
Yes, exactly. So we've had a pretty decent pullback on oil as well. How do you see that playing in?
Yeah, oil is actually quite an interesting one. I've got oil here. It has pulled back a little bit. Oil is one of those really interesting assets because obviously it's kind of a risk asset. So when the economy is doing really well, everyone is using more oil, and so the demand goes up and the price goes up. But it's one of those assets as well that when there's trouble in the world, like in the Middle East, and that is still bubbling away in a not a good way, with all the things going on in the Middle East, as you say, with the Houthis, with Israel and Gaza and so on and so on, and Iran and Lebanon. There's a lot of tension going on with Lebanon at the moment. So with all these tensions going on, if it creates a problem for oil supply, then the price of oil will go through the roof. So it's that two-way thing, pulling and pushing. Basically, you've got supply and demand. So if you've got trouble in the world, you're going to get, you're going to limit supply, so prices will go up. But if the world's firing all cylinders, the economies, then there's going to be greater demand and the price goes up. So there's two factors you got to keep an eye on. So you cannot say, you can't just examine one factor in isolation. And that's probably the same with all assets that you look at. So many people get wrapped up in looking at one particular facet, like when I showed those charts earlier on. If you just look at the spending power of the dollar, you'll be just really pessimistic, thinking this is terrible. And you can really, sway an argument one way by just looking at the statistics in one particular direction. But when you take a proper balanced view, then you get a much better picture and you can make a more balanced trade decision. So that's what I try to do. And I try not to get carried away with euphoria and moon talk when the markets are going well. And obviously vice versa. You don't want to get too pessimistic. And obviously you need to control those emotions. That's all part of our, the trading course that we do. A big part of it is actually managing your emotions, fear and greed and behavior. And Elliott Wave is all based on behavior. And so it is very, very important, as Warren Buffett said. Well, actually, it wasn't Warren who originally said it. But anyway, when there's fear and when there's blood in the streets, that's the time to buy. And these are the things we need to try to balance and to master if we're going to be successful long term with the trading.
I hear you.
We will just look finally at another of your favorite assets, Litecoin, which is a great asset, very, very similar to Bitcoin, as we've said so many times. And again, we appear potentially to have had some kind of ABC move higher up to here. And when I say it's ABC, I mean, it could be, that's how it looks. It would just be interesting just to see if there's any Fibonacci relationship. It doesn't look as though there is offhand, but we'll just check it out anyway. So we measure from the bottom here to the top of this wave here, and then we just use that measurement transposed to here. And there wasn't a precise relationship. It's close to 1-to-1 before the turning point. And we appear to have, from this point here, wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, wave 5. But we also have that here, 5 waves with a correction in the middle. So it is potentially an ABC. So I think there's reasonable expectation of some downside in the market. So I wouldn't be long at the moment, or if I was long, I'll be protecting my position so I don't get caught out. Everyone's getting a bit bullish. If you look at positioning in the market, most people are now positioned long in the market. I looked at positioning on Solana this morning, and I think 2.6 ratio, 2.6 times more people are long than short in Solana if you look at the futures. And so that's telling me that the market is already heavily positioned long, particularly the retail market is positioned long.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a good sign, but it can also be a situation that people are perhaps now, everyone's already long in the market. The only place for people to go is now to potentially the market can go down. I mean, as we know, the market makers are looking to collect money off retail traders. And so when positioning gets extreme, that's when you generally see market reversals.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt. That's it's always pretty interesting to watch. And the charts, of course, these are indicators, right? And a lot of times we don't know why things will happen. And of course, it could go up further from here, and it's hard to predict exactly when things will happen. But there's a lot going on in the world, so it's quite possible that we have some type of event. I mean, if we had a bad attack over here, that would certainly affect things. And I think that the possibility of having a bad attack over here is quite high. We have our border is very porous, and of course, a lot of people are mad at us. So,
well, particularly Iran are particularly mad at the US at the moment because obviously, the US retaliated in quite a big way, really. I mean, a controlled way, but a very, very firm way against Iran for the purported, the 3 US servicemen were killed and a number were injured at that base, and that was blamed on Iran. And so the US took retaliatory strikes against positions, not actually in Iran, but some of the proxy positions around in other countries supported by Iran. So that, there's real animosity between Iran and the US in particular. And so it could be that the US is a target, and they have to be vigilant, of course. As you say, got to watch the borders and watch for potential hostilities from the likes of Iran and others. I mean, as you just said, US are funding Israel in a big way, and a lot of those surrounding nations which are against Israel really don't like America for that. And not just talking about the Middle East here, even the Far East, China, are very what would I say, Palestinian or pro, Hamas and so on, and very anti.
You could almost just say anti-Israel, anti. Anyway, yeah, go ahead. But
so the US dollar here, we've seen a bit of a spike up in US dollar this morning, and maybe that is a warning of potential tensions. Maybe some people actually know what the inflation rate is going to be when it's announced tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be higher than people expect, because at the end of the day, it's not about the actual figure. It's about how that figure deviates from the expectation. So the expectation is already factored into the market. And so we have an expectation of inflation dropping by a certain amount. But if it were to come out above the expectation, then that would be, bullish US dollar and probably a little bit bearish risk assets. So it will be worth keeping an eye on what those inflation figures come out at tomorrow.
I can tell you guys this: if you are in the market, normally on CPI days, it can get wild. Massive moves up, massive moves down, wicks, one way or the other. And that could be, as we talked about, that liquidation type event that the market makers look for in order to shake some of these long positions out of the market. It's like I always say, there's two truths in these trading platforms. And one is that they do want people to be successful and make money. And I do honestly believe that is largely true. But the other side of that is the other truth, and that is that they can't pay out everybody. They have to liquidate people in order to pay for these large leveraged positions. If everybody wins, then they go bankrupt. It doesn't work. And so.
Yeah, I mean, leverage is, can be very exciting, but, if you're not a professional trader, you've got to be very, very, very careful about leverage. And I've seen people thinking that 5 times and 10 times leverage is reasonable, because you can actually, on some platforms, I've seen actually up to 1,000 times leverage, but even 100 times, you only need the market to move less than 1% against you, and your whole position is completely obliterated and wiped out. So leverage, like anything, is a weapon which can be used for good or for bad, but it's a very dangerous weapon, and you can actually end up getting hurt with it. So, retail traders, they see the potential to earn a lot of money, but they don't realize that. I mean, I don't leverage more than three times, and 3 times is really risky as far as I'm concerned in my book. Even if you leverage 2 times, there's real potential for wipeouts there, especially if you're shorting the market. It's very, very dangerous. So I would say be careful with leverage. They want you to leverage highly, because if you do, in the long run, you will wipe out. It's a fact. And
100%.
Yeah. So
you will wipe out. You cannot hold a long position for long, or a leverage position for long, I should say.
Yeah.
Or a long position.
Yeah. I mean, if you were holding, a lot of assets.
Michael Saylor.
Yeah. If you were holding assets recently with the market moves that we've seen, if you're the wrong side of the market, you'll be wiped out with anything more than, if you do 5 times leverage. People think 5 times is conservative. In the crypto world, it's not at all. You can actually, I've seen moves that can wipe you out within an hour on that sort of leverage, completely wipe you out.
Oh, yeah. Well, one way that I like to explain it to people is that if you are 10x leverage and it moves 1%, that feels like 10%.
Yeah.
So if the market moves 10%, you're completely wiped out. Your whole position. And you'll be liquidated well before that.
Absolutely, yeah. You'll be liquidated before that even happens. So you'll actually end up, yeah. So yeah, it can be exciting if you're trading with money you can afford to lose, or if not, trade carefully and learn how to trade properly. So again, we have a very effective Learn How to Trade.club course, which again, I would strongly recommend people, if you're trading at all, if you were trading, whether it's whatever asset it is, you need to learn how to trade professionally. Otherwise, unfortunately, the odds are stacked against you. So you need to try and learn to trade like a professional and hopefully make money.
That's the way we do it. So we'll probably this week we can get some things set up and then start to really make some good trades with everybody. So amazing. Well, Matt, it is always a pleasure, my friend. I will look forward to it every day. I hope you had a great weekend. I don't know if you heard at the top of the hour, we had our first kickoff show for Annie. So that was pretty funny.
Oh, that's amazing. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
It was pretty fun. The girls loved it. My daughters, they really had a great time. So that's what it's all about, But yeah, we'll be doing it, and looking forward to getting the update tomorrow as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I'm just looking around the markets, but been a great day. Thank you for having me again, and look forward to tomorrow, and we'll find some more interesting things to be looking at.
All right,
nice.
Sir Matt.
Thank you, Matt. You're the best.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. So I'm looking here for my video. I took a video of me and the girls backstage. Let's see where I shared it here. Let me just send it over. I guess I sent it on regular. I sent it on regular. I don't normally do that. So let me just try to forward that over here to somewhere I can to pull it down. So pretty interesting. I just put up on my X account as well. Some of this stuff, it won't let me load this one, but let me just pull up here my X account. Share this tab. Boom. Here we are. Okay. Good old X, our favorite platform here. We are picking up more and more viewers, of course, on YouTube as well, and of course on TV in Texas, Louisiana. Crooked Joe won't get away with his crimes. That's what Trump tells everybody.
He's going to be tried in by. What Crooked Joe is doing to our border is a crime against this nation, but he will not get away with it. We're not going to allow these horrible offenses to take place. He'll be tried by the ballot box. You know that? He's going to be tried in, by, and for the ballot box in November. I have to say that, otherwise the fake news would say, oh, he was very threatening. Remember when Biden used to say, well, I'd like to take him behind the barn and punch him. If he ever punched me, it wouldn't last long. That's one would last. No. Wouldn't last. 1, 2, 3 seconds. I'd go like this. That would be the end. What Crooked Joe is doing to our...
He's so funny, man. He really
pretty hilarious.
He is hilarious. He really is. All right, I'm just gonna run over a couple of things here because there was a lot of stuff that came out here over the bit. Of course, Trump says he can stop the killing.
If I'm president, I will have that war.
Would you continue to give Ukraine money and weapons if you're elected? What's the answer?
If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours. It'll be absolutely
Do you
over.
want Ukraine to win this war?
I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people.
Follow up on that because that's a really important
Excuse me,
statement
let me
that you
just
just
follow
made
up.
there. Can you say if you want Ukraine or Russia to win this war?
I want everybody to stop dying. They're dying. Russians and Ukrainians. I want them to stop dying.
I mean, what a concept, right? Stop the killing. Stop the killing.
Yeah, man.
You know? Now, this is pretty interesting, too. Do you think
Yep.
the CIA blew up the Nord Stream pipeline? Let's see what they had to say for themselves.
The sledgehammer that we have against Putin is to shut down the Nord Stream 2 pipeline and do it permanently.
This is a real, acute, and proven threat.
I'm a big proponent of making sure we stop Nord Stream 2 from happening.
Stopping the Nord Stream 2.
And, Trump also isn't wrong to identify Nord Stream 2, this pipeline that he talked about today, as problematic.
There is still time to stop Nord Stream 2 if we act quickly.
The timeline for action is short.
And I'm not going to stop working to halt Nord Stream 2 to stop Russia.
End it once and for all.
I mean, he needs to kill the Nord Stream 2 pipeline right now.
And I think the most important thing right now, and what Zelensky said, is they want Nord Stream 2 stopped. That's what I see as the most tangible reason and the tangible effect.
I believe we must stop this Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
We should have brought the project
Crazy.
end.
There's still time to stop it, but we need to act quickly.
Nord Stream 2 is a danger to peace as we know it.
Nord Stream 2 is energy blackmail.
It's Putin's pipeline. It's a trap for a Russian trap.
There will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
We will put an end to it.
Germany should cancel the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. We're looking at a variety of things we could do there.
We've been so far trying to use other tools to stop the Nord Stream 2.
And we got legislation that was appropriate to now have delayed this project significantly. We need further tools. We're prepared to use those tools should you provide them to us. And we've also used our diplomatic capabilities.
This pipeline must be stopped. And the only way to prevent the completion is to use all the tools available to do that.
If Russia invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward.
Kill Nord Stream 2 now and let it rust beneath the waves of the Baltic.
The operator of the Nord Stream gas pipelines, which run between Russia and Germany, says that 3 lines on the Baltic seabed were damaged on Tuesday.
It was a deliberate act of sabotage, and now the Russians are pumping out disinformation and lies.
This is
craziness. It's like so funny that we're even like anybody's even talking like we did that the U.S. didn't do it. Nuts. Right. Anyway, and one of the biggest natural disasters for the for the environment and everything as well. So anyway, guys, I love that you joined us again.
Part of it.
Yeah, that is the other part of it. We'll be back on live in about 5 hours on your TVs there in Texas and Louisiana, as well as streaming live. David, You're the man. Thanks, sir. I'm signing off.
Thanks, man. Doing my best to help out. See you soon.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.